Yesterday we created this room, the bedroom, with the furniture, and we also learned how to create the layers or the tags, and added them into layers, added all our objects into layers. So today we will uh, understand a little bit more about the concept of layers as well as materials in groups and components. Okay, so let me create an example first. Let me create a cuboid. I'll create this into a group. So we have, a component. Now I have created this as a component. Now let me create few copies of this. I'll create, let's say, 4 copies, 4x. And I've got 4 copies, right? Now here I can edit them, right? But instead I can also scale them individually. Now I'm scaling it at the component level, not editing the component. Okay, so I will be scaling this. Let's say I am scaling it on one axis. Now what's happening here is, even though these three, all of them are the same component, I can edit or scale them. So we had scaled them. Now what the difference here will be, even though this component is the same, but it has been elongated, right? So if I edit one of the component, let's say if I draw a line in the center, you can see that this component has also got the line at the center. But if I create a circle here, let's say if I create a circle, in this particular object we got an elongated circle because it got scaled, right? So here we had edited this, but we got the elongated circle because we had scaled it, right? And accordingly we get the profile on the rest of the objects. Now if I edit this option, this particular model, and if I try to create a circle here, now I can create a circle. Now this is not an elongated circle, but it's a regular circle. I have edited this component, but you can see that on the original component it got squeezed. That's because proportionately it was supposed to be like this, but we had elongated it, and we created our circle or our object in the elongated shape. That's why this got modified, right? So you need to be very careful while scaling the components, and if you scale it improperly, then you may get results like this. Now same thing can happen with materials. Let's say if I apply a material, let's say if I apply a stone material, or let's pick up a tile material and apply this material here, or let's apply it here inside the component. Now since I applied it here, and since this was a scaled component, so what's happening here is that the material also got scaled according to the object. So therefore you have to be careful while scaling components. Now in case you don't want this kind of effect, but you want the component to be like this, you can right click and explode it, and everything will be back to normal. Material will be back to normal, and then you can create it into a new component. Now, and the next thing I wanted to explain is that, let's say if you have this component, create this as a component again, and I will create again 3 groups, 3 times 3x, let's say I want to make these two as a different component, and these two will have the same definition. Okay, so since all of them are the same, so if I edit one of the components, then all of them will have the same definition, right? All of them will be edited equally. But I want these two to have a different identity, I mean definition. So I will right click, I'll select both. If I have more, then I would select more of them. I'll select them and right click and make them as unique. So now what happens is this has got a different, and these two will have a different component definition. And if I edit them, one of them, you will see that these two are getting changed because they will have a different component definition. These two have the component definition of number 3, and these two have component definition of number 4. That's how we create unique components also. So if you want to scale them, make sure you scale them and then you create them as unique components, and only then you do the modifications. Next up is adding layers and in groups and components. Let's say I have a table of 1500 by 1500, for example. Let's convert this into a group. Let me quickly create 4 legs to the table. 50 with a height of 750. Let me create a rectangle here only. Here, leg, double click, give it a height of 700, and copy them, the other corners. Let's add some modifications also. I mean, let's have a glass top for the table. And I'll give this glass with a thickness of 10. Okay, now we have got the legs, we have got this, and we have got the glass top. And I will select everything and make this into a component, a single component, and name this as our table. Sorry, these should be named as table legs, not chair legs. Now I want to apply materials to them. Now, as I have demonstrated that you should apply materials on the group level and not individual face level as far as possible. So what happens if we apply material on the outer part of the group? Let's say if I apply the material, let's pick up a wooden material, wood, and apply it here. And as soon as I apply the material, you will see that everything that has got the default material, that is the white and the gray faces, they will all pick up the material inherited from the group material. Okay, so this concept should be clear. So it will inherit the material from the group. Okay, all the faces will inherit the material from the group. But if I apply apply a new material, let's apply a material of, let's say, for the glass, and apply it here. Now what is happening? Now, since I applied it inside the group at an individual group level. So it will pick the material from the from the lower level basically. So to explain this in a better way, let's have a group and let's have few groups. And let me copy them also so that we have more groups. Now I'll create these three as one group and along with this another group and add this into another group. Now we have a group with all of these groups. Inside them I have this group and inside them I have this, and then we have the individual groups. Okay, now if I apply material here at the individual group level, let me apply a material. I'll start with colors only. Let me apply this material here and I'll apply another material here, and I'll leave this as a blank material with the default material. Okay, now since these two have their material at a lower level and they don't have the default material, so if I apply a material at the higher group level, that means if I apply the material, in case I show it to, let's pick another material first. Now this might be a little confusing. Now I have applied materials in this particular level, and if I apply a material here, only this object will pick that material because these two already have their materials applied and they don't have the default materials. They don't have the default materials now anymore. So if I apply the material, let's say if I apply it to one of these, only this will pick the material, right? Now if I go inside and if I change the material here to default material again, and apply this here, now it will pick the material, inherit the material from the larger group, right? Again, if I apply a material, let's say the blue color, to one of this, everything will catch the material. That's because all the objects that have the default material, which is this one, will inherit the material from the group, larger group. And if I want a particular object to have a different material, then I need to go inside and pick the material and apply them individually. And again, like this. Now this concept might take some time for you to understand, and I can also go inside and apply material on the faces, and in that case it will also be visible to us. That's because we will always get the priority. That means if we apply the material at the lowest level, that material will be visible. If it has the material, default material, only then it will inherit the material from the group. So is this concept clear? This might be a little confusing, but this concept needs to be clear. Only then you can apply material correctly, because sometimes what happens here is that, let's say I applied this material on the face level, right? And next then I try to apply a metal material on the group, and I will keep on trying to apply here, but it will not pick the material. That's because it will only pick the material if it has the default material applied to it. right? As soon as I apply the default material, you can see that now it will inherit the material from the group, and now I can apply them to the group as a whole. So make sure you apply material at the right level only, so that you get the desired results from the materials, and leave the faces as far as possible with the default materials. Only then you will get to apply the materials in a proper way. Now, same thing is also applied with layers in case of groups and components. I mean, it's not the same thing, but a similar concept will be applied. Now, if I create a few layers, let's say I will create, just for example, I will create layers for the legs, and I'll select all the legs and put them to the legs layer. And for the wooden frame, I'll name this as frame, and move this to, I can also move it from the entity info to the frame. And for the glass, I'll name this as glass. And as a whole, for the entire group of table, I can have a component of layer for the table, and add this to the table layer. And if I have other furniture also, I can pick them also and add it to the furniture layer. Now the concept needs to be understood. The concept that needs to be understood is that I can turn on and off individual. Okay, this needs to be in the frame layer. This needs to be in the glass layer. I can turn off individual objects, and I can turn off the table altogether, because I can control the visibility of the layer that is applied to the group, as well as to the individual objects inside the group. And I can even go inside and pick up the lines. Let's say I pick up only the lines and few faces and apply it, add it to a new layer, tag 1, and I can turn on and off only that particular face. Right, now I don't need this. I will erase this and everything to the default there. Now, why I always want you to make new objects in the untagged layer or the default layer, that's because sometimes by mistake you may add lines or faces to one of these layers. If that is your current layer, then what will happen when you try to turn it off? Then you may accidentally turn off some faces or edges, right? So it's always better to use this layer as the default layer. Now if we have another default layer and I turn off the untag layer, you can see that the objects inside the default layer does not turn off, even though everything inside here, these objects, the loose geometry, they are in the untag layer, right? So that's the advantage when you draw everything, all the loose geometries in the untag layer, and create and organize your layers in a proper way. I can also add this, add all of this to the furniture layer, and I can turn off the furniture now. So furniture layer, it will turn off. Now individual table can be turned off, layers, legs can be turned off, glass can be turned off, and so on. So this organization is important, especially when we will be dealing with more complicated objects, maybe a floor in our later stage. That's how we create layers in a more organized way. Then we will let's see how we can edit a material. Now we have applied materials from the material window. You can pick different materials, and let's pick with materials only, and pick it and apply. Now shortcut for the paint bucket even is V. As soon as I type in V, the material window will also open up automatically. And in order to pick a material, you need to hold the Alt key, and you can pick a material. Pick any material from your model. I can pick one of these materials. Right. Now, if I want to edit a material, I need to pick it first. If the material is already, let's make sure that you pick the right material and you see it here. And you can go to the edit bar, and you have various options to change the color. You can pick one of these options if you're whichever one you are familiar with. I'll go to RGB, and let's change the color a little bit. Some of the materials might already have a texture image. We can either turn it on or off. I don't want to turn it off for now. You can change the texture size. Let's reduce this a little bit. Change this to 500. You can see the grains got smaller. And you can also colorize it. That means everything, if it has different colors, everything will become one color only. You can change the opacity if you want to change the opacity also, and thus you can create or change or modify material. Now the benefit of modifying the material is that all the places where you had applied this particular model material will get changed, right? So let's say you only want to modify a material for this backrest, and you didn't want to modify it here. So I will make changes only to the headboard, right? So I will pick this material. I need to create a new material. So I will create this, click this button here. And I can rename this. I can, let's say, headboard material. Call this headboard material. And I can change the color, or I can make any changes, or I can even change the texture image. We will deal with using our own images as textures later on. And click on OK to add this to our material library. Now, once this is added, we need to apply this material to the to wherever we want to apply it, right? So we have applied this new material, headboard material, to the head. This is how we create new materials. We will be dealing with creating materials and adding materials to rough geometries as well in detail. But for now, you just need to understand this much. Step by step, we will learn more about materials. Now, in the material window, we have these material libraries, and if you want to check the materials that are already applied or that are already used in our model, you need to click on this home icon or in model icon. Now, if I am using I'm within one of the material library, I can click in here to check all the materials that are in my library. okay, that are applied here. I mean, all of them might not be in use at the very moment, but at some point you might have used them in your model. Now, can you see this small triangle, white triangle with some materials, while others do not have that triangle? That means only these materials are now actively applied on the model. Rest, either we had deleted this, or we had modified the material, or we had changed the material. That means they are no longer applied in this model, right? So we had applied this material, right? But the object is no longer there. That means it's no longer applied. So, but it still has the triangle. That's because we had applied it to component, and component are, even if we delete the components, they are still part of our model. And we can check that with the help of the component window. And similarly, if we click in the model or the home icon, you can check all the components that are once created or placed in this particular file. So we have the bed, we have this component which I had demonstrated, created once. Then we have this component which I demonstrated earlier. Now all the components which we once created but had deleted, those components will also be visible in our component window. Now, in order to delete them, and if you don't want them, you can click in details and then click on the purge unused. Now you can see that only those components which are actually used in the model are part of this file. All the other models are now removed. Now if I go back to our material window, you can see that this material is no longer in use. Only those which are in use are now having this triangle. And even here I can go and purge the unused materials, and you can see only the used materials are now applied. Now this material did not get deleted. That's because it's currently in selection. If I select another material, I think this will be deleted. Yes, it's gone. That's how we manage our component window as well as materials window. And we may need to purge them time to time if we have too many unused components and unused materials within the file. The file will become heavier and heavier over the course of time. And if you don't delete them, you may find it difficult to work on your model. So it's always advisable to keep on purging the unwanted materials and components. Next up, within the component window, we can also search for components that were created by other people and shared with the SketchUp community, which is called the SketchUp, the 3D warehouse. Now, if I search in here, let's say type in double bed, enter. Now I need to be connected to the internet in order to do this search. And I can see that there are about 1253 double beds, files that are saved as double beds, and I can pick in anyone that I want. In case I want to see whether this is the proper one, I need to click on the name. You can see a pop-up will open out, and you can see the detail before downloading. And few things to notice is that whether you want this particular file or not. 10. Next, the file size you should keep in mind. because certain times we may not be looking for a detailed model. So in case we don't want a detailed model, then you should look for a model with a smaller file size and then download it. Now this is a collection, and here I can see that there are more beds, double beds. I can click. If I click on the icon, it will start downloading it. If I click on the name, it will open the detail window, warehouse window. And here I can see whether this is of use or not. And once I see that, I can either click on the download, or I can simply click on the icon and it will start downloading the bed. Now, many times you will find models that are not created in a proper scale, so you will need to scale them. Now, in order to scale them, we can either click S and scale them like this manually, but since we don't know the scale factor, we won't be able to scale them properly. But we know the dimension. We know that this bed length should be around let's say 2000. So for that, what we can do is I can go inside the component. Make sure you do this inside the component and not outside. Go inside the component, use the tape measure tool. Now you measure the dimension which you know using the tape measure tool. This is the dimension which we are going to take reference of. So I have clicked here and I can type in the new dimension now. I will type in the dimension, let's 2000. I need to pick a corner point. Now I'm not able to pick the corner as since everything is rounded off. Pick a point from here and to, let's pick this point. Now I'll type in the dimension 2000. Yes. Now it's asking, do you want to resize the active group or component? Note that components within the active group and components that were loaded from external files will not be resized. I'm going to say yes. Now, since this did not get resized, that's because we have a component within a component, I guess. Yes, it is not modeled properly. So I need to do this again. The issue with this particular file is that there is one group. Within that group, again, there is another group. So I will be exploding the first group and then go inside. There is another group. You know who created this model. Now in order to scale it, I will measure the dimension for the reference and then type in the new dimension. This time it should work. Yes. Now we have the bed in proper dimension. Let's take the dimension measure as well. I will pick the tape measurement tool and see whether it is scaled. Now it should be scaled properly. Maybe I was not able to pick the exact point because it is rounded off. We don't have an edge here. I mean, we could have turned on the hidden edges. Then we could have done a better scale. So whenever you import a model or import a component, if you need to scale it at a proper dimension, you should do that by going inside, taking the tape measure tool picking up the dimension you already know for the reference and then type in the dimension. Now many times you may face this issue that instead of measuring the length, you are creating a guide. So if you don't want to create a guide, just click on the control key once, and then you won't be creating a guide, you will be measuring the dimension and you will need to type in the new dimension. So that's how we import components or groups or files from other people's work and then add it to our model. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that while modeling, we create our guides, right? Let me create few guidelines just for demonstration. Let's say we have few guidelines. Now, I am working somewhere here at the moment, and let's say I see that I can see a guide. So if I try to erase this guide, I can erase this, right? I'll pick this and erase the guide. Now what will happen? As soon as we erase the guide, now since this guide was created inside these furniture group, if I erase this, everything will be deleted. So whenever you try to erase guides, instead of using the delete tool or erase tool, always go with edit and then delete the guides option. In that case, you will be sure that only the guides will be deleted and not any geometry connected to the guides. So if you want to open the 3D warehouse directly, then you can go to Window, and here you have the 3D warehouse, and within the warehouse you can search in by categories, or you can search for anything you are looking for specifically. And let's say I'll search for a dining table, and add it to our model directly or from the window. Now I can also add filters like the file size or number of polygons. Number of polygons means number of faces basically. And also we have some advanced options, and we will deal with them later. Now you can also have products from specific brands, or you can get catalogs, collections in case of certain 3D models. Let's say if I search for a wash basin, not let's look at in all categories. A wash basin will have products. Let's say we have Jacquard, then we will see other brands as well, Kohler. These are all products that are created by the brands themselves, the companies themselves. So we will deal with them later. We'll understand them, but you can see that there are lots of things within the 3D warehouse which are useful, so that you don't always need to create everything from scratch. You can use these models directly, unless you are designing one of them. Unless you are designing a wash basin or designing a double bed, you can use them directly from the warehouse. And you can also modify them according to your need, like scaling as well as adding more details to them. So that's all for today from my side. We had covered basic concepts about groups and components and adding layers and materials to groups and components. Also about materials, editing a material and creating a new material from one of the materials. Then we also learned how we can look for components in the component window as well as the 3D warehouse and add that to our file. And in case we don't get a component in a proper scale, we can scale them using the tape measure tool. So if there are any doubts, we can cover them. If not, then we would like to close the session. Now, if you have created something, you are most welcome to share your screen. Okay, Nana is asking, can you show scaling an object again with reference? Sure. Let's say we want to scale this particular table. Okay, so I need to go one step inside that particular group or a component so that I am now editing the group or the component. You must not do this at the model level here. You must go inside the group or the component which you need to resize. So that's the first and important thing. Then you pick the tape measure tool. Make sure you don't add a guide, you just measure it. So for that, I need to click the control key once. Clicking the control key will allow me to measure and not create a new guide instead. So I will pick up the dimension which I need to measure or I need to resize for the reference. Now this is the dimension. I'll click it. Now at the bottom right corner, I see that it's 1500. And let's say for some reason, I need this to be of the dimension 2000. So I'll type in the new dimension and click enter. Now it will ask me, do you want to resize the active group or component? Now make sure you read this and it says active group or component. If it says that do you want to resize the model, then immediately cancel the option and do the measure tool inside the group or the component. That means if you are not getting this option, then you might be doing it in the wrong level of the group. Okay, now I need to say yes, and proportionately, now I know that this particular dimension is 2000 and proportionately all the other dimensions are changed. Now what will happen if I do this command in my model directly? So if I pick, let's say this dimension, and if I change this to, let's say, back to 1500, this time it will ask me, do you want to resize the model? It is saying, do you want to resize the model? That means entire model will be resized, including my walls, my other furniture, only those objects which were loaded from external files. That means the bed which we imported, that will not be resized. So if I say yes, then you will see that this room got resized and everything we created within the model will get resized. This bed will not be resized. That's because it is an imported model. Clear? So don't accidentally do this at the model level. Make sure you do it inside the group or the component only. Is that clear, Nana?
Sir, hello.
Yes.
So if I don't want to change the height of the table, like if we scale it, the entire model, the entire table got scaled up, right?
Right.
Along with the height also. So, but I don't want.
Yes, for that you need to then manually change the height, or you need to do the scaling and change the dimension, or you can go one step inside and change the tabletop only. That means if I go inside this and change this to, let's say, 2500, then it will be scaled. Manually you need to do that changes, or else you can also do another thing. You can scale it like this, right? Okay.